Hello and welcome back into another episode of Tobacco Road and Abroad. My name's Gareth, joined by Aiden, and things could not have been hotter this past weekend. We've had upsets galore, we had up and back games, hot temperatures across the country. When it came to games, I know in the Carolinas there was a lot of heat-related stoppages and just a lot of games won and lost based off of players' management of energy and just trying to keep teams fresh. So
Yeah,
without further ado, let's get on into it. Is there any leading thoughts you want to start out with? Just any broad strokes, or do you want to hop right into something?
leading thoughts from this week. This was kind of for college football, at least. I feel like a lot of teams were getting a little bit of a week one hangover, if that makes sense. There was a lot of games that were a lot closer than I expected them to be. There's a good amount of upsets. And it's just that time of the year, like in the beginning of the season, temperatures are still hot. Teams are still like they've been conditioned, but all right. Time to put like pedal to the metal. Time to start like getting the offenses going right now. You had your week one uh, slump. Now it's time to start getting things moving. And really excited to hop into all these Carolina games. A little bit later, we're going to be jumping into the NFL, maybe a little bit of UFC talk, but we'll see how it goes. But starting off in the Carolinas, let's bring up uh, NC State versus UVA. This game was really interesting, and I had a good time watching it. Uh, I know, Gareth, you have definitely a lot of opinions on it, but my brief summary of it: NC State. I'm not sure if I'm necessarily high on them, but they find ways to win, and I really respect them for that. That third quarter, scoring 21 points, absolutely great. A lot of people dog on the NC State defense right now, but as Gareth is going to mention, I feel like when they put pressure, that's when good things happen. Morris from UVA had a really good game, but a couple detrimental mistakes that cost him the game. That game losing interception at the end, that's one that where he a lot of pressure was added to him, and he made a pretty bad mistake. But I'm high on NC State. I'm still pretty high on UVA, but I'm really interested to see where NC State goes from here.
Yeah, I first of all, I'd like to say I enjoyed the game. That's the best our offense has looked. And before I get into the defense, I will say people love the dog on our defense when the defense is literally what's been bailing this team out for the last 5 years. So let's just start out by saying they could, there's some slack that could be cut for at this point with how many games they kept us in that we should not have stayed in.
Hmm.
But initial thoughts: the offense looked electric. Gutsy play call. Everything people have been kind of complaining about with Doran when it came to play call. Doran decided to go out and put his nuts on the table. Prolific passing attack, great balance. You know, great balanced rushing attack. One thing that I liked is the variable tempo. Our offense is meant to be run as an up tempo, but when midway through the third quarter, we realized that if we are going to beat this UVA team, we need to slow down. And I know that sounds counterintuitive with how hot it was. You want to keep their defense on their heels, but NC State and UVA were succeeding at moving the ball in two different ways. UVA, it was slow, methodical drives. NC State's, particularly first, two, three touchdowns, they were like 4 and 5 play drives with massive chunk plays, which that's great. It's great explosive upside, and it's something this offense has been missing significantly. But Dave Doran and company decided midway through the third quarter, we need to keep this UVA defense out here longer to give our guys a rest. Because right now, Chandler Morris is just picking us apart on third and long. That takes me into my next point. The NC State defense, until third and long, did its job. You know, Great coverage, and they limited damage on the ground. Damage on the ground came in those third and long and fourth down scenarios where it's just it was a great gutsy play call, and they beat us schematically. But the majority of third and longs, this is what I want to bring up, is NC State just kind of dropped 8. And from what we know about Chandler Morris from previous seasons, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the port. He's very accurate. He throws the ball with anticipation, and he usually doesn't make too many mistakes, which, it's kind of funny considering how the game ended, but man, a few mistakes. Um, you cannot drop 8 against him and drop into zone against him every single third and long. He will pick you apart. There's a reason why the majority of teams in the NFL and the higher level college teams send pressure on third down. You just cannot let a quarterback sit back there and have time to have his, pick of receivers. You got to send some sort of pressure. That doesn't necessarily mean a blitz, but if you're not going to send, a couple extra men to force a quick decision, you need to do something called simulated pressure, which is where you make it look like you're blitzing and you back out of it, but the rush comes from odd angles. It may be, you send a corner, but you drop a defensive lineman. Or, you do some weird stunts and twists with the D-line comboing with the linebackers. You need to do something unusual to get him out of his usual progression. A lot of people think a blitz is just there to sack the quarterback. No. Blitzes can be used for other reasons. It can make a quarterback miss an open window. Yes, when you blitz, are guys going to be more likely to be open? Yes. But when he's got 2 guys blitzing through the A gap, is he necessarily going to see that receiver crossing the field on a drag route? The chances are, he could still see him, but, is he going to be able to hit them? Does he have time? Is he just going to have to take the sack to, prevent a fumble or some sort of misthrow? So, long story short, I just think you can't blame this one solely on the defense. This is more of like, I hesitate to call it a play calling issue, but that's what it is. I'd just like to see more pressure on third and long when we go up against these quarterbacks that have the talent, that have the decision making, that have the ability to fit the ball into those tight windows in the zones. So, outside of that, I just have some small nitpicky things that I didn't like. The clock management at the end of the first half, where Dave Doran did not use any of his timeouts and essentially just let UVA run out the clock and score a touchdown, that was definitely not needed. And then it's not necessarily something I'd say for concern, but it's something I like to see more of. Granted, there's only been 2 games, and that's not usually very representative of the college football season. Just 1 sack in 2 games. The defense played great against ECU, outside of 2 big plays. The defense played great against UVA, except for third downs. But my big thing is it goes back to pressure, what Aiden talked about. 1 total sack. And like I said, it's not just about the sacks. But if we're going to have success long term this season and achieve that 9-3 record that I think we can, we're going to have to do things to get the ball out of opposing quarterbacks' hands, particularly ones who have the ability to pick us apart. Force him to get the ball out quicker, not go through his full progression, get him out of rhythm, make him miss a read here and there. And that's ultimately what sealed the game for State is, the one play where they finally decide to send pressure, Chandler Morris throws the ball to a defensive end of all people in coverage. They probably had the fastest guy on UVA being guarded by probably one of the slowest NC State players out there. And the slower guy came up with the interception. That's what pressure does. It forces and I'm not here to dog on Chandler Morris and call it a stupid read. Chandler Morris is a smart quarterback. There were much bigger teams other than UVA he could have gone to. But for whatever reason, that Tony Elliott team for Virginia, they inspired some belief in Chandler Morris to come there. He's a smart quarterback. I think, like you said, Virginia is a good team. I think they're going to be a solid, 7-5, 8-4, and could be pretty dangerous for any ranked team they come up against. But that's really all of my, takes on the State game. What I will say is Doran put his nuts on the table there with about 3 minutes left, going for it on 4th and 1 on our own 24. I will say, gutsy. Gutsy to also not put the quarterback under center. Gutsy. I like it. Game on the line. You run a quarterback draw with our backup quarterback. If that didn't pan out, we'd be calling him stupid. So, I'm neither compliment nor insult. Gutsy call. But props them. Good win. Shame it couldn't have been a conference game. Virginia's always a fun team to play against. I feel like it also does that game a disservice that wasn't a conference game. That was such a good game for it to not count towards something in the conference. But hey, I like the idea. Virginia's a rival. They aren't on our schedule for the next few years because of dumb realignment. Find ways to play local rivals within your conferences that you aren't slated to play. I like it. We do that with Duke a lot. We did that with Duke in 2020 and 2013. So that's all I got to say. I'd say pretty good game for NC State. Just third down defense. If we were able to get a stop on one or two of those third downs, and with how our offense was scoring at will, that could have been a very different ball game if we were able to just even get two stops on third and long. But I digress. Great game all around. Very entertaining to watch / listen to. Um, so shall we go on to UNC next?
Nah, let's head up Duke versus Illinois next. I want to say about this game, I don't know how I feel about Duke. I feel like this game, number one, is the tale of two halves. Number two, I feel like maybe a little bit closer than the score indicates. But Duke, that second half kind of collapse with got the fumble in the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter, interception, fumble, turnover on downs. It was not a good turnout for Duke in that second half. Illinois, I'm not necessarily the most high on. I think in the Big Ten, I think a lot of things are going to kind of fall apart for them, especially like with how the Big Ten is structured. But you never know; they could be a sneak-in playoff team, in my opinion. But I think there was a lot good takeaways from that first half. If I'm a Duke fan, I feel like being able to keep Illinois within one in a game that a lot of people had you losing big in this one. And granted, you did lose big, but I just don't know how I feel about it. I keep on going back and forth. I go from, oh, Duke might just be completely overrated to like, no, maybe let's see how a couple more games play out. Then we can put a definitive answer on what Duke is this year. Because with all their turnovers, Illinois just absolutely capitalized on every single one of them. And it seemed like Duke just never jumped at the bit to when they had opportunities, if that makes sense. Um, After their fumble in the third quarter, Illinois, 4 plays, goes down the field in 61 yards and scores a touchdown in under a minute. But then Duke's able to respond. But then Duke has another like I wouldn't say boneheaded, but just a bad interception that gives Illinois a chance to drive down the field 89 yards for a touchdown. Fumble again, one play after that touchdown leads to an Illinois touchdown. And just moments like that really kind of had the game get away from Duke in that one. Um, I like him a lot, but this game wasn't the best look. But I wouldn't be sounding any alarms right now if I'm a Duke fan.
Yeah, if you look at the stats, Duke outgained Illinois. It was just Duke. I double checked my math because Aiden and I talked pre-recording. Duke essentially gifted Illinois 28 points.
Yeah.
You take those. I'm not saying Duke would have scored on those drives either, but even if you say Duke for whatever reason ended up giving the ball back to Illinois, even after not turning the ball over, but they did something more than turn the ball over on that drive. That's a close game. I think if you take 28 away, even if you just take 14 away from Illinois, that's a very different ball game with a very different mindset. But Duke turned the ball over 5 times. You can't do that and win. I mean, Manny Diaz as a coach knows that. Like former Miami coach, had a big emphasis on takeaways, creating possessions, stealing possessions, getting extra, shots at the scoreboard. And I realize this is just kind of, a big slap in the face to Duke, considering last season SMU beat Duke despite turning the ball over 6 times. But that's not a recipe for success. That's just a special Duke way to lose the game. Is have 6 takeaways and still lose. But you know, similar to you, I can't get a gauge on this Duke team. The talent is there. The
Yes.
talent for this Duke team is there. It's just, are they going to be able to put it together? Which this makes them a dangerous team because you won't know what to expect going into a game. So, yeah, I really don't have much to say other than that. Um, Stadium looked a little empty at points. I know during the game it sounded. I went back and watched it. It did sound pretty loud in there, but at kickoff the stadium looked rather empty. So that's Duke, you're gonna need to find some ways to get your students and some people out to those games.
Yeah. Yeah. But then after that, we had Wake Forest versus Western Carolina. Gareth and I are kind of split on this. Uh, I can kind of agree with Gareth that this wasn't like the best 42-10 victory for Wake Forest. There were a lot of mistakes, especially in that second quarter. Wake Forest started off the game kind of slow with 2 punts, but then able to score back-to-back touchdowns, uh, leading the game to being uh, 19-0, where eventually Wake was able to score off a safety to make it 21-0. Wake missed the extra point on the second touchdown, and I believe went for two on the third touchdown and did not get it. So then after that, in the second quarter, just interception, missed field goals, fumbles. That's kind of what has a lot of people like kind of a little bit concerned for Wake Forest. But then they were able to kind of pick it up again in the third quarter, scoring a touchdown right after the Western Carolina punt. They fumble again, eventually score another touchdown, get a turnover on downs, and then a touchdown. I mean, you can be very nitpicky and say like this is not the best look for Wake Forest, but at the end of the day, being able to get 42 points on the board against, granted, Western Carolina, not the best team, it's still at least it was kind of promising if I'm a Wake Forest fan. I'm still very skeptical going into this NC State game how they're going to perform, but I'm a little bit more high on them this week as opposed to when I was last week, where I was saying that Wake Forest was going to lose to Western Carolina.
Yeah, I'm kind of back and forth on this Wake Forest team because they always seem to show up against us, even when they're pretty bad. Um, it's great. Like I think for Wake Forest, this win could get them a lot of momentum going their way, like a get right game. Like they did a lot of things right, but they also did a lot of things wrong. Um, I mean, 4 turnovers if you count the turnover on downs. I'll excuse that one. Turnovers on downs. That's like if it's those, I feel like can be forgiven as turnovers sometimes under certain scenarios where it's like I could see why they went for this. But for me, um, just the concerning thing for Wake is Robbie Ashford. His consistency really has been there. Super talented quarterback. Um, Entertaining to watch. He's smart and knows what he's doing, but the thing is that really hasn't really translated to the field very well from what I've seen from him previously. And I just think Wake Forest's okay, one dimensional is not the right word. Their offense is very two dimensional. It's either going to run through Clybourne, or it's going to run through Barnes. And it's just going to be, are we going to be able to effectively shut those down and limit them? I mean, over 75% of Clybourne's yards on the season came from the Western Carolina game where he was averaging 20 a carry and 3 touchdowns. That is just one thing we're absolutely going to have to shut down. So we cannot let that happen. And we're going to have to generate pressure against Wake Forest. I know, his Robbie Ashford's accuracy's kind of been in question the past few weeks, but we'll get into that when we do previews about what State's going to have to do. But if I'm Wake Forest, yes, I'm feeling good about this. Your run game looked really good. Chris Barnes had 9 catches for 150 yards. Your offense was explosive, but for me, it's kind of a double-edged sword. The offense looked great at times, but there was also miscues. You saw what the offense could be on the high end, and then you saw what the offense could be on the low end. Like, you got tale of two offenses. You were
Yeah,
either ripping them apart or you were,
being ripped
spinning your
apart.
wheels in the mud, being
Yeah.
ripped apart. Yeah.
I mean, if there's any game now, I don't necessarily believe that like any person has a set amount of mistakes that they need to get out. But if there's a game where you can make these kind of like mistakes, it is against Western Carolina. So maybe like if I'm a Wake Forest fan, it's good to have these mistakes now and learn from them as opposed to having them against NC State. So that is one thing that I would say if I was backing the Deacons. Just it's not you're 2-0. Hey, it's not all doom and gloom. We'll see what happens and work from there. But
Yeah.
moving over to 3:30 kickoff of App State versus Lindenwood. This one kind of surprised me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, not a very good look for App State. I had this game like I wasn't watching it, but I was keeping my eyes on it all day, and App State just kind of fell asleep at the wheel a little bit. Like after a really good first quarter, scoring 2 touchdowns, they just kind of stopped after that. Like touchdown, first play of the game, 72 yards, like it's looking electric. Then they get a turnover, get that interception, but then they follow it up with a fumble. And App State's eventually gets the ball back, scores a touchdown. Then after that, it's really kind of quiet. Just the rest of the first half, just turnover on downs, punt, interception, third quarter, fumble, got a field goal at least, and then another field goal to make it 20 points, and then you just kind of fall asleep. You fumble it, you give up a touchdown, you give up the onside kick. It's starting to look bad, but at least get the interception in the end. Um, App State kind of got a little bit lucky. Like they didn't take it. I don't think they took this game entirely seriously. Am I going to say that they're on fraud watch? No, I wouldn't say that yet. But this is a game where I think you kind of need to admit, hey, we didn't play to our fullest ability. We kind of made some crucial mistakes, but hey, we were able to get out with the win. As long as you're able to get out with that win, people are going to forget about it. I guarantee you 3 weeks from now, nobody's going to be going like, oh, remember when App State only beat Lindenwood by 7 points? No, I don't think
Yeah.
that's going to happen. But I'll just be on alert right now for App State, but anything can happen. We'll see how they go when we make our predictions with them going down to Southern Miss this week. But then after that, there was a 6 o'clock kickoff. I was able to go to this game, ECU versus Campbell. Overall takeaways from this game: ECU looked really good. Really solid performance. No real complaints. Took care of business. Everything is kind of rolling well in the ECU right now. Able to really get a good win after a tough loss to NC State. I'm excited to see how ECU performs in the American this year. I think they could really do well. They got Coastal Carolina coming up this week, and I think they're on the right track. But is going to lead us to UNC versus Charlotte, which, not going to lie, I was able to watch a little bit of it and watch a rerun of it. I still don't know what to think of UNC right now. It's not looking good. I mean, able to get away with the 20-3 win, but you should be beating Charlotte by a little bit more. I mean, good first half, I'd say, like at least scoring 17 points. That's at least a start, but it seems like so far from the very limited time we have spent with Bill Belichick's UNC, it seems to be we pull out all our tricks in the first drive, come out really dominant, and then after that things kind of just slow down for a while. It starts off with a real solid three-play touchdown drive for UNC. Then after that, we get a field goal, and then things slow down. Turnover on downs. Got a punt. Need to punt again. Able to get a long and methodical 80-yard drive for a touchdown. So that was good. But then after that, just punt, field goal, punt. So many 3-and-outs. Like, it seems to be either UNC's offense is on or is just not there. And I don't know if it's a good look that you're getting 3-and-outs against Charlotte right now. No, not to dog on Charlotte, but it's not a good look with like the weapons that you have at UNC right now. I can chalk this up to just what I'm hoping the case is going to be a couple weeks of just growing pains, and then maybe mid-season we're going to start getting it right. Everything's going to start clicking. I think if anything, I think the way history is going to remember UNC versus Colorado year one is Colorado's going to be the team that started off hot and then started to like fall off. UNC was a team that started super cold, and I'm not going to say they're going to go hot and like go on an absolute amazing run, but I feel like the tools and everything is there for things to start clicking later. And that's why I think with all these growing pains we're going to start seeing. But right now, not the best performance against Charlotte, but I can't complain with a win.
Yeah, it's for a win. You can't really complain about it, but I do see what you're saying with some of those worries, like 3-and-outs versus Charlotte. That game getting interesting, particularly towards the end of it. With I think they had a missed field goal and then they had a drop touchdown pass, which is something you can't have. I think for me, the main problem for UNC, Gio Lopez, obviously very talented. I just don't think like Carolina, from what I've observed, they're trying to run kind of a multiple, almost pro style offense at times. I don't. Now that doesn't. I'm not saying they don't have spread aspects. Like there's a lot. UNC at times can get RPO heavy, which I think that leans right into what Gio Lopez specializes in. RPOs, getting him out, or other stuff like play action passes, getting him out on the move, where he can use his legs, use his athleticism, help force the defense into binds. But the problem is, I felt like at times, particularly in the TCU game, and I wasn't able to watch much of the Charlotte game. I didn't see much of it. But if you're going to run some sort of offense where you're going to go multiple looks, you're going to go heavy at some times, you're going to go spread RPO at sometimes, I think you need to go with Max Johnson. I'm not saying Gio Lopez can't do that stuff in the future, but from what we've seen right now, he's been very effective at times, but then from what we've seen, he can go pretty cold. And I think if you're going to have Gio Lopez as your quarterback, stick with an identity. Stick with what works with him. If not, go with Max Johnson and stick with what works with him. It's all going to depend on what Freddie Kitchens wants to do. And I think ultimately, on top of, who they go with at quarterback and how they're going to play it, I think Freddie Kitchens is what's going to be the limiting factor. For those who know, Freddie Kitchens is UNC's offensive coordinator. And I know some of the Carolina fans, I haven't talked to Aiden specifically about Freddie Kitchens and his play call, but I know some other Carolina fans I know through social media or like other Carolina content creators, they're not particularly happy with Freddie Kitchens' play call and situational awareness, particularly with some of those 3-and-outs. There was a lot of, okay, I'll preface this. I love running the ball. I love being able to run the ball at will.
Hmm.
That it just feels there's something really when you run the ball well, it's the conservative thing to do, but at the same time, if you're like dominating with it, the best feeling in the world. Like, yeah, 60-yard bombs are fun to watch, but you're consistently getting 6 yards a carry, and then you bust one off. There's no better feeling in the world that watching that. But for UNC, if you go inside zone, this happens several drives in a row. If you go inside zone 3 plays in a row and it goes for 2 yards or less, okay, yeah, you can't completely abandon a play, but you can't go 3-and-out on the same play 3 times in a row, or you can't go 3-and-out on the same play several drives within the same game.
We
If
seem to
it's
be
not working,
we seem to be really good at like getting to like 4th and 1. That seems to be like the main thing. Like 3-and-outs always happening at like 4th and 1, time to punt.
and it's that brings up another interesting point. You're going to get to a point where it's if UNC wants to take the next step, they're going to have to start rolling the dice a little with those 4th-and-1s, which is something Belichick historically is not too privy towards. He's not a big fan of going for 4th down,
Yeah, yeah.
from what I've seen.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not saying there isn't times where he's gone for it on 4th down. I'm just saying of all the coaches that were in the NFL at his time, and particularly towards the end of his time in the NFL, I think he went for it the least. Now, that could be more of an offensive coordinator's decision, but and before I get way too out of the way and into the weeds on this, and with all the discourse about, old Belichick versus new Belichick, I do think in order for him to succeed in college, there's going to be certain things he's going to have to give on. And I don't think it's the things he's already given on in terms of like stuff in college or, beliefs, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
Like certain beliefs about the sport of football. I don't think he's given up on the right beliefs and embraced the right ones.
Hmm.
I will say, when it comes to RPOs, he's embraced those beautifully. Those couple drives where UNC's looked really, really prolific, great RPOs, great play design. But the problem is when you get into the nitty gritty of it, is what's going to happen? Is Bill going to be willing to roll the dice when it comes down to it? And I think that's another aspect that could really limit them. But Bill's first win. You got to get that first one out of the way. And who knows? It could just be like EBGB's about getting that first win, and UNC
Maybe.
could be fine,
Hmm.
maybe. But like you said, there's still some things to be of concern about, as there is with all the other 3 triangle teams or all the other 3 Tobacco Road teams. There's been
Yeah.
hangups, but
Moving
as
over
it pertains,
to. Hmm?
go for it. Yeah,
No, no,
go
no,
for
no,
it.
no. I was just going to transfer
Okay,
to
yeah, no,
the.
because I was about to ask if there's anything else you want to cover, state of North Carolina wise, or if you wanted to move on to the
Uh,
abroad portion.
let's move it down south a little bit to Clemson, able to eke out a win against Troy, 27-16. That first half was not looking good for Clemson at all. They were down like 16-3 going into halftime against Troy. I mean, able to really clean it all up in the second half. I do have to admit that Clay Klubnik really kind of started to show out more in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, able to score 24 points to get the win over Troy. But I don't know. I think that just Troy is definitely one of those Sun Belt teams that you can't really take lightly. And had a semi-close win against Nichols, but pretty solid team, and I think it was a little weird look for Clemson, not gonna lie, but it's definitely a win's a win, and I'm still high on Clemson after this. It was the first half had me a little bit weirded out, not gonna lie, but they were able to clean it up, so I'll give it to them.
Yeah, this Clemson game, this is the second weekend in a row where I've watched a Clemson game at a specific venue on the Cape, and just kind of another stinker by Clemson. They just kind of, part of me is still high on them, like Aiden is, but part of me is also like, this Clemson offense is lacking that explosiveness we saw all of last year. Like
Yeah,
the ability to make the big play, the ability to throw the knockout punch, the ability to stay out in front of the eight ball just really hasn't been there. And I'll go into it more when we start talking about predictions for this week. But with some of the teams they have on their schedule, that could be really dangerous if they don't figure it out. If they kind of have this, they're not really able to find that knockout punch, that big play, it could be a long season for them. And I'm not saying they'll end up as a bad team, but I'm just saying there could be a lot of, oh, what ifs if they're not able to get that explosive offense, their element of their offense back. If they're not able to work out these kinks, which I think they'll be able to. It's Dabo in the long run. I think Clemson will be okay. But this little lull, particularly for Clemson, it's going to have to get figured out really soon.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But moving on to uh, upsets that actually did happen. Arizona State versus Mississippi State. Mississippi State's able to get a win on this one. Not gonna lie. Like, granted, I do think that maybe Arizona State was a little bit overhyped going into this season. I felt like they may have lost a lot of their key players, but Mississippi State coming away with a win. I did not have that uh, on my my predictions this week. Blake Shapen from Mississippi State, able to throw 3 touchdown passes. Really clutch touchdown in that fourth quarter in the final drive. Just sends the ball deep. Able to get a touchdown. That was a great watch. Really happy to see Mississippi State pull out a win. Maybe they might be back. They might have the makings to get more wins than I expected going into this season. I mean, looking forward, you got Alcorn State, Northern Illinois. I mean, NIU can be a little bit tricky, as I know as a Notre Dame fan. But I mean, there's a very real possibility that you're going 4-0 into conference play, and then after that, it's going to get harder. But you got teams like Florida on your schedule, and Arkansas. Those could be winnable games. I don't know about Tennessee and Texas A&M, but yeah, the season's young for Mississippi State. I like seeing Stark Vegas having a little bit of hope in their eyes.
Certainly a game I did not see coming, but I'm surprised, and I feel like they did a good job. They were able to limit Sam Levitt. He obviously didn't have a great game. 2 turnovers, less than 50% completion percentage, but Shapen kind of put the team on his back. Mississippi State looked to have choked away a 17-0 lead, but Shapen finding the open man as the time was running low. Long touchdown, exciting game. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch much of it, but I've seen the reactions. It looks great. Happy, like you said, for Stark Vegas. Mississippi State, I mean, after, at least in my experience for me, I don't really have much bad. They're one of the few, outside of teams that aren't NC State, they're a team that I like to see do well. Like, particularly after how their fans kind of treated us in the World Series after all that College World Series debacle. Their fans were very, sympathetic towards our cause. Like, they dedicated that win to state. But so lots of positive vibes towards Mississippi State fans. I hate seeing Mississippi State, not be good year in and year out. Obviously, if we were to play them, I'd want state to win. But college football is better when Mississippi State's succeeding to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's hard watching them constantly be down. It's nice to see them kind of get a little bit of a get back. Hopefully get back on track. I think they're going to make a bowl game this year. I think they're going to be right back. They're going to finally get back to the bowl game. Might be a little bit of a tough season, but like you said, some of these SEC teams that people are pretty high on, looking a little rough. Like that Florida game, like you said, looks winnable. So that's what I'll say. ASU, I don't think their season's over necessarily, like some pundits online say, claiming the Big 12 is going to be a one-bid league. But hey, You never know. What do you know about the two-bit American? But we'll get into that, like, two-bit league American, but
Maybe. I
we'll get
mean,
into that later.
well, we'll get into that now. I mean, South Florida versus Florida. Florida. What happened? I gotta say this though. I gotta give my props. My player of the week might not be the most like statistically dominant player, but Nico Grammatica made some magica going down, coming back from a missed field goal earlier in the fourth quarter. They were like 40 yards out, 50, like probably 50 yards out. 3 minutes left in the game. Missed the game winning, game leading field goal, but Florida kind of choked a little bit. South Florida able to get the ball back, and granted, it was pretty much an overglorified extra point, but ice in his vein, Nico able to hit the game-winning field goal, and South Florida comes away with the win. And I got to say this, South Florida, they're going up against Miami this week. You're playing with house money at this point right now. I mean, I'm not going to lie. At this point, I would have had you 0-2 and in my preseason predictions. Every statistical like outlet that I've seen, all the computers, everybody saying South Florida is going to be 0-2 starting the season. But hey, you're 2-0, got a good win against a ranked team. I'm still relatively high on Florida. Like last year, they kind of started off a little bit slow, but were able to pick things up. So maybe that might be the same story this year with Florida. But South Florida's looking good, and I'm high on them right now, and they have a shot to win the American, maybe even make the playoffs.
I wish them the best of luck. It could be particularly at Miami, this could be a tricky game, but who knows? Crazier things have happened. You could have a defensive lineman spit on one of their players and give them a free 15 yards, moving them closer. Which, by
Maybe.
the way, what is it with Florida and their defensive players acting up and costing them games in the decade that is the 2020s? What is this? The second or third time this has happened since 2020? Where now I will say this isn't like the LSU game where they had to stop. Like, they didn't. But two 15-yard penalties in a row to start USF's game-winning drive. You gifted them. They were on their 11. You gifted them the 41. Like, you really didn't make it that difficult. Now, yes, did they drive down and basically make a glorified extra point? Yeah, but you gave them, you had them about 20 yards away from a doable field goal, 2 plays in on stupidity. Like, they had just had a negative play on 1st and 10 on that start of that game-winning drive. And you go, I think either face mask or pass interference, and then you fucking spit on the guy. Bro, your defense just gave up a 15-yard penalty, and you think the best thing you can do for your offense is spit on someone
Damn,
on an
this is a
incomplete pass.
damn, this is a really great opportunity for me to mess everything up for my team right now.
What do you mean? This is a perfectly good opportunity for you to throw your life away. Not going to say where that's from, but I feel like that quote's very applicable, as Aiden kind of hinted at. But no, Florida players and throwing their life or livelihood in this case away. But we're obviously this week we'll get into USF Miami, but best of luck to them. Byron Brown looks crazy. That offense looks like it's firing on all cylinders. Can't wait to watch that game. I'm going to make an effort to watch that game, even though I've got some classes this weekend I have to take for certifications, but I'll do my best. I'll find a way.
He will be there.
I'll be watching if I can. I mean, I wanted to watch the Florida game, but apparently the Cape only had where I was on the Cape only had, or the bar I was at the Cape with my girlfriend only had it had the Oklahoma game on, and then it had the Clemson game on.
Let's get, but hey, speaking of, let's jump into that Oklahoma-Michigan game. OU, I'm not going to lie. I was not familiar with your game. I want to say, I want to personally apologize. I I kind of went in this year saying that, hey, OU's overhyped, OU's overhyped. OU's looking pretty good this year, in my opinion. And I do have to say about Michigan, I'm kind of, I'm I feel like Michigan's having a little bit of an identity crisis. Michigan isn't doing what Michigan does to be great. Last year, when they were on their run, their Linsanity run, if you will, I feel like Michigan was great because they were able to out physical people. And in this game, I feel like they didn't really play into it. And the plays where like the Haynes like 30 yard like 70-yard touchdown or whatever it was going starting the second half. That's when Michigan really was kind of playing into it, when they're able to put more offensive linemen, get more gaps created for the running game. That's when Michigan's kind of like doing better right now, right? But Underwood, I feel like people are kind of hating on him too much. Still a freshman, kind of figuring everything out. I think he was relatively like productive. I mean, granted, only 9 completions, but no interceptions, nothing like devastatingly bad. I feel like Michigan really needs to kind of lean into the run a little bit more. And when they do run the ball, I feel like they're not doing it in like a physical manner. I feel like that's when Michigan's good. Michigan really needs to kind of start leaning back into what makes Michigan great. Michigan's great when Michigan can just punch you in the face. And I don't want to say like, oh, Michigan's going soft. They're going a little more rinky dink, kind of like throwing passes that aren't going to be completions with your freshman quarterback. I feel like you get more offensive linemen out there, get more bodies up front. The run game is just simple math. Anybody, a 5-year-old can do it. If the box is full, maybe like try to find other routes. But if they're not pressing, you got to run that ball, and you got to find ways to just outnumber the people that are pressing you. And Michigan is like in this game we saw Michigan is at its best when they have more offensive linemen, when they have more people creating these gaps, not just an A and B gap. Like there's freaking Z gaps created. Like that's when Michigan's great. Create the Z gap to make that
Yeah.
TD,
I
man.
want to see those Harbaugh-esque, unbalanced, I'm talking Eldridge Terror level formations of, good God,
Yes.
how many big uglies do they have out there? Is
Mm-hmm.
that what? What is that? 3 tight ends? You know, I want to see some ungodly looking formations. I want to see some formations that look like the key to their success is just formations that look like it'd be something you'd have to confess on Sunday at Mass.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm talking monstrosities. And they just run it out of the pistol, run it out of under center, run it out of the shotgun. I don't care. Hell, it could be some weird looking I formation. Run the ball. Michigan, that is your strength. Underwood will develop. Underwood will develop. Talented quarterback, but you cannot just kind of throw him into the fire like that on the road. Let him develop. Your identity is running the ball. You have the bodies. Run the damn ball. It'll help. It'll help bring the team together. It'll help find an identity, and it will help get Brian Underwood some confidence. That'll help out your passing game. Get him some tight ends out there to throw to on play action. Get him on the play action boot. Do things to help your quarterback. And it's not always things that directly help them. It could just, like we said, develop a run game. It'll make things a whole lot easier. Now, on the flip side, Oklahoma. I didn't say this on air, but I've had some concerns about their offensive line after how week one went. Yes, did they have a dominant win in week one? Absolutely. But there were some, shaky moments to that offensive line that I think after what I saw after watching the Michigan game that I'm just going to kind of chalk up to as kind of week one jitters. Week one miscues since there is no preseason in college. I think Mateer looked great. I talked to one of my friends who's a big Oklahoma fan. The game wasn't even over at this point. I texted him, what do you feel about Mateer? I said, with the pull Oklahoma has, is there anyone else you would have rather have in the portal? He goes, no. He goes, I wouldn't trade John Mateer for anyone else that was in the portal. I said, not even Chandler Morris? He looked pretty good. No. He goes, no, I want Mateer. So
Hmm.
I think Oklahoma has their guy. Um, my hot take for, I guess, this Oklahoma team is I think Mateer is going to be a top 3 finalist with the Heisman if he continues playing this way.
Yeah.
If he continues playing this way, Mateer is going to be in New York in December.
That's not a ridiculous statement.
Now, one game I want to highlight, I've highlighted this game 3 years in a row on various podcasts and radio shows I've been on.
Mm-hmm.
Clash of former Big East Titans, Syracuse and UConn. Syracuse. What the hell? Now, before I get into this, I want to say no disrespect to Jim Mora and UConn. Jim Mora is doing great things with that UConn program. He is turning it around. He is making UConn football palatable. For instance, John Fagnano, their quarterback, transfer from University of Maine. They've developed him into a very competent quarterback. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the win, but he duked it out with Steve Angeli pretty good.
Yeah.
He went blow for blow with Angeli. I thought UConn had them for a bit, but Angeli does what he does. Came in through the rock round. I think he had almost 400 yards in that comeback win. Syracuse ended up winning 27-20 in overtime. And I think the big headline is what everyone saw on social media afterwards. I've got more to say about the sprints than I do this game. Yes, it's a tough look. And if I'm being honest, I love Fran Brown. I think he's a great coach. I wanted him to replace Dave Doran at NC State a few years ago. I liked what he was doing. I like what Fran Brown does as a coach. But I think the sprints is more of an optics thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just if you go back and watch the sprints, none of them are actually sprinting. I wouldn't even say any of them are actually running. And I know you're probably saying, Gareth, they just had a game. If he were actually that mad, I wouldn't see 95% of them walking. I wouldn't even consider what 95% of them were doing as jogging. They were walking. Which makes me either think Fran Brown's lost the locker room, which he hasn't. You know, they're coming off of a great year. There's no way he's lost that locker room. Or it's all for show. It's on the same level as Tennessee coming out warming up shirtless at Ohio State. Level for show. That's my 2 cents, or at least my take on the Fran Brown running sprints. Now, it could have been that this Syracuse team just doesn't really have an identity. Not identity, but like, they don't have the work ethic that Fran Brown would like. And that could have been the reason why they were running sprints and continually running them is that no one was running. But my take, it was just as performative as Josh Heupel having Tennessee come out and warm up shortless in the shoe. So,
I wouldn't say it was that performative, but I don't know. I mean, Syracuse able to get away with the win. I, I, I'm going to leave that take with you. I'm not going to push back. I'm not going to reinforce it because I'm going to be real. I don't know, and we'll just see. We'll see. And I feel like there's a lot of other news that is kind of more like relevant in the college sports world. I say personally, I kind of like it, but I can understand it definitely can probably come out as performative. But then yeah, again, uh, freaking, we all know the meme of like staying on the field after a huge loss is kind of become like, oh my gosh, that's performative now. Like, sometimes you just gotta let these things play out. You know, if somebody's having their performative moment, let them have it. Because hey, sometimes it might be a good morale booster. I don't know, but
I'm not saying it didn't work either. And I'm not. I love Fran Brown as a coach,
yeah.
but yeah,
Moving on, we got Iowa State versus Iowa in the Cyhawk um, rivalry. This was a good game. Iowa State able to come away with the win on a game-winning field goal in the fourth quarter. Iowa unable to respond and turning it over on downs in the final moments of the game. Iowa State's looking good. I feel like Iowa State's really kind of going into their own as a football program. I know like the whole theme for a while was like Iowa is Iowa State's big brother, but I smell this rivalry starting to shift a little bit. I like the direction Iowa State's going. They're looking good going into next week. They're 3-0. I'm pretty high on Iowa State. I do have questions with like the Big 12 at general, but right now they're my front runner.
yeah. For me, they're the front runner as well. They're 2-0. They've got two solid wins, two Power Five wins.
Hmm.
I'll say one solid one. That Kansas State win's looking a little
Yeah.
iffy right now, but I'll give that week one jitters. But two Power Four wins to start the season, you really can't ask for anything better. I think outside of USF, that's one of these stronger starts to the season. Obviously, USF winning two ranked matchups, but you cannot argue with two Power Four wins to start the season. That's you can't argue with 2-0. That's if you want to make it to the playoff this year, you got to start 2-0, particularly in those games. So got to give it to him there.
Moving over to another in-state rivalry, we got Baylor versus SMU. SMU unable to seal the deal against Baylor. Uh, I'm still high on an SMU, but Baylor kind of showed a lot more fight than I expected. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I've been dogging on them for a while. Like I've thought they were overrated for a while. I was not surprised against that loss against Auburn, but Baylor definitely showed a lot of fight in this matchup. And with a wide open Big 12, anything can happen. So maybe Baylor's not as fraudulent as I once thought, but a real back and forth. I thought SMU was going to take it in the end. Unfortunately, turnover on downs and second overtime. That's what sealed it. Baylor able to get the game-winning field goal to win this in second overtime. SMU still, I think, looks good as far as the ACC is concerned, and Baylor is definitely going to be a team to look out for in a very wide open Big 12.
Yep, I'd agree. That's what I'd say. I mean, another choke job, double digit choke job that we've seen this weekend. But got to give it to
Yeah.
to Baylor. Their offenses look good. It's a nice bounce back after that week one loss to Auburn, who I think is a great team. I think SMU is still going to be a great team. I'm curious to see how much of last year carries over to this year in terms of their success. Is SMU able to kind of be that, almost playoff caliber team? Are they still going to be challenging for the ACC? I certainly still think so. But I think with, SMU showing they're a little vulnerable at home, that definitely opens the door. And I think the ACC is a little bit more open at the top than some people think, particularly with how Clemson's played. I'm still high on Clemson as well, but I think the ACC at the top is a little bit more open than I think.
Speaking of double-digit swings, we had Missouri take down Kansas this past weekend. I had this game wrong. I had Kansas winning this one, but Kansas came out hot. Jalen Daniels looked really good in that first quarter, and like it was looking electric for Kansas. They were getting the turnovers. They looked like they just had Missouri dead to rights, but it was only the first quarter. Missouri able to bounce back in a big way and really kind of took control of the game after that. Scoring 15 points in the second quarter, making it a little bit more interesting going into halftime, and then starting to pull more away in the second half. Um, Jaden Daniels did have an unfortunate pick, and that kind of like started to swing things around a little bit. But Missouri able to keep a steady head, not let the moment get too big for them, especially in a rivalry matchup. You know, momentum can really be. Uh, it's a weird thing in these rivalry matchups, especially uh, matchups where like two different conferences and this alignment age, things can get a little bit weird. But a good win for Missouri, and I hope to see matchups like this more going into as seasons start to go on in this realignment era.
I agree. Is there any other game you want to hit on before we move on? I mean, I'd like to give some FCS. I'd like to give some shout outs to some people who got their first wins against FBS programs this week.
Hmm.
First of all, shout out to Missouri State, their first win as an FBS program over another FBS program, beating Marshall. Another shout out, LIU, the Sharks, Long Island University, fins up, getting their first win over an FBS program in our everyone's favorite NCAA 26 player and the Eastern Michigan Eagles. Another upset, another one kind of, in the New England area, almost Big East-esque related. We've got Bryant in Providence, Rhode Island. Upset, or not in Providence, Rhode Island. Bryant, hailing from Providence, Rhode Island, upsetting UMass Amherst in Amherst 27-26. Of all the teams, for as much as Aiden and I complain about our teams, there is one team we would not want to be. UMass Amherst. They have not had a winning season since they moved up to FBS. In fact, I'm pretty sure Kennesaw State has more FBS wins than they do right now, and Kennesaw State's been up 2 years.
Dang.
UMass. I think it's time. You're either going to need to start taking football seriously, or I think it may be time to head on back down, if you know what I'm saying. Give the
Yeah,
other Massachusetts team a chance. Switch places with Holy Cross.
that would be
Not
nice.
going to guarantee it, but I think Holy Cross would win a fair bit more. I
Yeah,
think Holy Cross, with how much they make the FCS playoffs, would at least be bowl eligible some years. They might suck, but I think they'd at least make a bowl game on occasion.
yeah,
But no, someone within the UMass Amherst athletic department's going to have to. They're going to need to give a shit at some point.
yeah. I mean,
Any other
speaking,
games you can? Sorry, go
you
ahead.
know what? I know it's technically not New England, but it's all north for me. Army taking down Kansas State this weekend, 24-21, getting their first win on the season. This one had me by surprise. Army able to really grip it together in that second half and have a come from behind win, winning 24-21. Not a good look for Kansas State, but Big 12, like definitely wide open right now, especially in a conference where West Virginia lost to Ohio 17-10. I mean, we're calling like fraud checks on the ACC. I feel like it's only fair that we need to start pointing out like the Big 12 might be a one bid conference this year.
I'm beginning to agree, and this is something I saw on the college football Reddit page, so I don't really have anyone I could credit for this take, but if Kansas State continues to have the year they're going to have, you think there's going to be a curse associated with the team that loses in Ireland if the trend continues?
Maybe.
But it's certainly looking that way. Kansas State's kind of losing in similar manners that FSU did last year. with a quarterback everyone thought was at least solid. Like Avery Johnson's a good quarterback, but
I just
you know
realized
what,
UNC plays TCU in Ireland next year.
buddy, don't lose. Don't lose. That's what if you do. Don't lose. The
It's
winning team
only
goes on to have a pretty good year, from what I've
it
seen.
only gets worse.
You thought this year was bad. That's gonna be nothing compared to what happens to Bill next year.
Oh no. I mean I can't be looking at next season already, but oh my gosh. Like if that's going to be the trend.
That's why I was a little worried when you said for you guys when you said UNC was gonna be playing in Ireland. I'm like when you're talking about how this is either gonna be the greatest thing UNC football's ever done or send them back to the dark ages. And then when I heard the thing about Ireland, I'm like, they still could be legit. They still could be really good under Bill, but I'm like the chance of dark ages has just exponentially grown by just seeing playing in Dublin.
Dang. But
Watch out.
anyway, want to move on to predictions?
Yeah, let's move on to predictions. A little bit too much doom and gloom there at the end for me.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, well, starting off with the Tobacco Road teams, Thursday night we got NC State versus Wake Forest. I got NC State winning this one.
Yeah, I got State winning this one. I really don't know what we're gonna get from the defense. Um, they've done well adjusting to what they struggled with in the previous game in the first two games. Like obviously from the bowl game to playing ECU the first game, it was limit the rushing yards. ECU had 32 yards on the ground. I don't even think they had positive yards till the third quarter of that game. Um, so what I'd like to see is I'd like to see the defense get a little bit more stops here on third and long if we're able to get them into those situations. Get the defense off the field so we're able to preserve energy, get stops down the road. Um, I'd be happy with a win here. Um, NC State does have a pretty dominant record against Wake Forest, but little asterisk next to that. We don't play well in Winston-Salem.
Ooh,
In my lifetime, NC State's 3-9 in Winston-Salem.
yeah. I
So
mean,
I would not put it past Wake Forest to win this game, but I think NC State's got this. Um, Wake just always seems to find ways, so I'm not going to go out there and say I think NC State's going to beat the brakes off them because I do think at least when it comes to from what we've seen, the logical answer would be from what we've seen from Wake Forest and NC State is that State's defense is a little suspect, but State's probably going to, put up some numbers. I don't know. We will see. If Wake Forest turns the ball over like they have, it could be a long night. It could be a very long night for them. But if
yeah.
Wake Forest is able to play their cards right and Dave Doran's, we could be in for a very interesting matchup. But for me, keys to this game are limit Clybourne. Obviously, cannot have him rush for 190 yards like Western Carolina did. And limit Barnes. Those were literally the two biggest pieces of their offense. And then send pressure. Force Robbie Ashford into tough decisions. He struggled the first couple games. Yes, he's been impressive. He's done some impressive athletic feats. He's made some good reads, some really good reads, but he's also made some really bad reads. Let's speed that decision making up and force him to make even more bad reads. I'd like to see some pressure on the quarterback. That doesn't necessarily have to be blitzes, but some form of either simulated pressure, some form of stunt or twist, or find ways to just get to the quarterback. Because right now, NC State only has one sack on the air. Other things I'd like to see is manage the clock. Like just be smart with your timeouts. Just be aware of down and distance. Just the basics. And then finally, just no stupid mistakes. Just limit that. Um, we returned a decent amount of people from last year. The team's a little bit more mature. CJ Bailey's a little bit more mature. I'd like to see us be aggressive, but cautiously aggressive. I don't want to see us reckless abandon having CJ throw in a triple coverage. But I'd like to see, kind of the play balance we saw in the last game. 30 the run game was working, but we didn't lean completely on it and throw our legs in one basket. We threw a few kind of, keep you honest plays in there. Like, yes, we just ran for 10 yards straight on 3 runs in a row. But we throw in like, quick play action or, a quick, slant route just to keep the defense honest, keep them guessing, let them know we still got that in the back of our mind. With that being said, I think NC State's going to win this one. I got State winning 31-14 first. I think it's going to start out pretty close, but I think the mistakes for Wake Forest are going to pile up, and I think NC State's going to take advantage of that.
With it being a rivalry game, like I did say, I have State winning this one, but I'll say it's going to be like 28-24. But moving
I'd
on,
honestly take that.
yeah. But moving on, we got North Carolina versus Richmond. Listen, like I think UNC is going to win this one. I'm not going to do this whole keys to the game thing. Listen, look out for Richmond. Richmond's one of those weird teams that like they keep it close, and with everything being uncertain, I don't know how like I still don't know how Bill Belichick UNC is going to operate, but UNC should win this one, and I want to see a big win on this one. Like I need to see offense needs to start getting things right, start being aggressive, using your physicality a little bit more, maybe start going for it on fourth down. I'm not saying anything stupid, but we need to start trying to nut up a little bit. But I got UNC winning this one 42-10.
Yeah. The UNC at this point, Al Davis said it best, just win.
Yes.
Just win. Just win.
Just get the win.
Just get the win. Richmond's been, like you said, known to make some teams sweat. Just smart decisions. Just you're the more talented team. Your offensive line's bigger. Your defensive line's bigger. Lean on your strength here. Don't try and get cute with it. That's all I got to say. Don't try and get cute with it. Just do what you need to do to win. Don't try and make it look a certain way. Just the Bill Belichick way. Do what you need to win. Even if it's ugly, win the game by any means necessary. So, for me, I've got UNC winning this one 28. But, oh, sorry.
That cut out a little bit.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll just reiterate. Do what you need to do. Give me UNC winning 28-3. I think it'll be a little close in the beginning with some miscues, but I think UNC is going to figure it out as the game goes on.
Yeah. Moving on to other North Carolina teams, we got Charlotte against Monmouth. Charlotte's got to get a win somehow. Give me Charlotte in that one. 35-14.
Yep. I'm going to go with the same thing. Charlotte's just got to win this one. Monmouth, not a great football team, so you just give yourself some momentum here. Go out there and put 40 on.
Yeah, I mean, got wins against Colgate and Fordham, so you don't know, but Charlotte should be able to take care of business. Staying in the American, we got ECU versus Coastal Carolina. I'm pretty high on ECU right now, and Coastal looks kind of iffy. Got a pretty big loss against Virginia, and then barely eked out a win, 13-0 against Charleston Southern. I'm expecting another big game from ECU. Give me them winning 49-14.
Yeah, I've got ECU winning in a big way. MJ Morris, NC State's former quarterback, the quarterback there now, and how the mighty have fallen. He's a shell of his former self. Coastal does not look good. Who does look good though? ECU. I've got ECU going to keep riding their momentum. I'll have ECU winning this one 28-7. I think ECU is going to take that one 28-7.
Yeah. Back to the ACC, we got Duke versus Tulane. Listen, Tulane looks really good right now.
They got a solid win against Northwestern, but kept it close against South Alabama. So if I'm Duke, my main focus on the game's got to be limiting those mistakes. But they're able to limit the mistakes. I do see Duke eking out this one. It's got to be like 30 to like 28 though. Like these are both pretty solid teams.
Yeah, it's the key for Duke, like you said, they're gonna have to limit the turnovers. This Tulane team will definitely take advantage of those turnovers if it comes down to it. Um, this game being at Tulane, I see Duke directly ignoring the directive not to play away a group of 5 games. But they make their own rules anyway. So I got Duke winning this one 27-19. I think Duke ekes it out, but I would not be surprised if Tulane finds a way to pull this out, particularly at home, and just kind of the direction and the momentum they have. I mean, they've got Retzlaff at quarterback, so anything can happen.
I don't
Talented quarterback,
I don't know if he's
UIG.
starting.
You don't know if he start. You think he got benched?
Well, no, he just joined like 2 weeks before the season started. Is
I
he?
mean, he's leading their stats right now.
Oh,
277 yards passing, 177 on the ground,
I didn't
5
see
total
him play. I
touchdowns.
I didn't see him play against Northwestern. So
He might have. Oh, he was the quarterback against South Alabama, I think.
yeah.
He was the quarterback against South Alabama, and then I think they brought him in for rushing packages against Northwest.
Hmm.
Oh no, he's the stats leader for the game against Northwestern. 52, 152 in the air, 113 on the ground. With that being said, moving on to
I mean,
uh,
after that, the only North Carolina matchup we got App State versus Southern Miss. App State's kind of on a little bit of thin ice, in my opinion. Uh, in is Southern Miss, uh, just kind of eked out a win against Jackson State, but I don't know. It's at Southern Miss. I think I might have to give this one to Southern Miss.
yeah, Southern Miss, they're looking a little better this year, and with App State's kind of woes recently in their last game, and just their inability to throw the knockout punch, I'm giving this one to Southern Miss as well. This could be a rough one for App, but 2-0 is 2-0, so you never know what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Moving to more abroad, we got Clemson versus Georgia Tech. This could be a really good game. I'm pretty excited for it. I'm pretty high on Haynes King, and if Clemson comes out flat on this one, Georgia Tech's going to be a team to look out for. And you know what? I might go for it. I think Georgia Tech's going to upset Clemson.
I got it as well. My initial take for this was going to be if Haynes King is healthy, Georgia Tech's going to beat Clemson. But after watching their backup quarterback Philo play, since Haynes King they sat him just because he had a nagging injury. I think Georgia Tech could win with either quarterback, Philo or Haynes King at the helm. Obviously, I think it's going to be Haynes King, but with how flat Clemson's looked, I'm giving this one to Georgia Tech. I still have a lot of belief in Clemson. I still think they can make the playoff and be the best team in the ACC. But similar to last year, they're just going to have to figure it out. They're going to have to figure it out. And I don't think this is going to be the game, particularly with how flat the Clemson offense has been, how just lack of explosive plays. And they could go out there and prove me wrong this weekend. And I hope there's the explosive plays. I still think Georgia Tech's going to win, but if this continued lack of explosive plays, and particularly how Georgia Tech likes to control the clock and kind of bully your defense and kind of set the tone for the game, this could be a really dangerous day for Clemson. So for me, I've got Georgia Tech this one.
Moving on to 3:30, we have Tennessee versus Georgia. Uh, I really like how Joey Aguilar performed against Syracuse, and like I said, this offense is pretty quarterback friendly in my opinion. And Georgia still has a lot of things to figure out right now. This is in Knoxville in Neyland Stadium, so I got Tennessee taking this one.
I do too. I really don't know where I stand Georgia because they've won their games, so I can't fault them for that. But at the same time, it really hasn't been in convincing fashion, if you know what I mean. It's been particularly that most recent game against Austin. What's it? Austin P. They played 28-6. You would hope a Gunnar Stockton led Bulldogs offense would be able to eke a little bit more points than 28 points against Austin P. But hey, you never know. Like you said, it could just be that second week slump we talked about with several other teams. But give me Tennessee winning this one. I think it's gonna be an absolute dogfight, no pun intended. Because it's between the Volunteers and the Bulldogs. Volunteers are a type of hunting dog, but no pun intended. But I've got Tennessee winning this one 27-14 over Georgia.
Moving over to a 4:30 Arrowverse. Your ass has been sent to the Arrowverse, but this might actually be peak. Miami versus South Florida.
Biggest game ever on Arrowverse.
I don't know. I mean, Baylor, SMU. Arrowverse might be on a run lately.
Possibly. You never know.
But we got Miami versus South Florida. Man, like I kind of want to go with the upset, go with South Florida, but I think Miami's just kind of too good. Like Carson Beck's pretty proficient, and he also got Fletcher at running back and got a lot of good defensive tools on Miami. I got Miami winning this one in a close one though, 38-28.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. I think it's going to be a close one, but I think Carson Beck is going to white boy summer his way out of this one. You've been seeing the memes all around. Carson Beck using Latinas to get out of a slump is the most white boy summer thing ever at the University of Miami. I've got Miami winning this one 42-24. I think it's going to be close, but similar to my prediction for a few games last week, I think it's going to be close going into the fourth quarter, but those moments where it's life or death are going to come down to it, and I think USF's going to have some instances where they don't convert on a fourth down, and Miami just goes down and scores kind of the dagger, the final nail in the coffin to kind of stretch the score out. So give me Miami 42-24.
Moving over to a rivalry matchup, we got the backyard brawl, Pittsburgh versus West Virginia. Honestly, I think Pitt's going to win this one big. Giving me Pitt 42-20.
Yeah, this West Virginia team's not convincing at all. They lost on the road to MAC squad Ohio, who could turn out to be good. The jury's still out on them, but that's just not a good look. You cannot be losing road games against group of 5 teams in a Power 4 conference. So I've got Pitt in a big way. I think Eli Holstein's going to cook. Give me Pitt 41-10.
I mean, Ohio did keep it close against Rutgers. So I don't know. Maybe Ohio might be like that. But
Rutgers is kind of nice.
Ohio is going to Ohio State. Give me Ohio State on that one.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah. Then after that, we got Arkansas versus Ole Miss. Arkansas kind of off to a pretty good start right now, but I feel like that's just kind of the trend with Arkansas winning against like Alabama State and Alabama A&M and Arkansas State. That's kind of like the trend with Arkansas. I got Ole Miss winning this one pretty handedly.
I do too. Arkansas, I don't really trust Arkansas just for whatever reason. It's just not good feeling. I know it's not good to go off feelings, but not good vibes. Started off strong, but I just don't have a lot of faith in them. If you know what I'm saying. So give me Ole Miss in a big way as well.
After that, Florida versus LSU. I'm not high on Florida, but I do think LSU is overrated.
I do
Hmm.
as well. And this
Hmm.
is someone as I'm a Nussmeier believer, and I think LSU's overrated.
Yeah, but I'm not a Brian Kelly believer. Hmm. It's like that. It's like that TikTok monkey meme. Florida is going up against Brian Kelly, though. Hmm. Ooh. But anyway, I got LSU winning this one. I mean, Death Valley night game is going to be a big environment. I think Florida is going to have a tough time responding to adversity. Not saying that they're bad. I think they're definitely going to bounce back, but this is not the game to bounce back from.
Yeah, I think I've got LSU winning this one by double digits. I just I don't trust Brian Kelly, but I also don't trust Billy Napier. I do see a world where if this game's ugly enough, Billy Napier may be on the curb by Sunday morning. He may not be the coach any longer
Yeah.
at Florida if this game's ugly enough.
Yeah. But after that, we have a night game in South Bend, Notre Dame versus Texas A&M. I got Notre Dame winning this one. I got them winning 35-20.
Yeah, I think this game's going to be a little bit, more lopsided than the first home matchup of this last year, just because it's on the road for Texas A&M this time, and I really don't. I like Marcel Reed and I like their offense, but their defense has been kind of suspect, particularly this past weekend. So, and particularly that with that Notre Dame defense, give me Notre Dame 38-17. South Bend, Texas A&M. Got to get to 8-4 somehow.
Yes.
They need a loss in there.
Uh, Going over to the SEC network, we have Vanderbilt versus South Carolina. Um, hmm. I don't
Give
know. I'm
me
kind of high on Vanderbilt, and South Carolina sometimes does seem a little bit sus to me, but that might literally just be a me issue. I don't know. Keeping it 24-11 to Virginia Tech, not a good look in my opinion, but I think I might need to go with the Gamecocks on this one.
yeah. Is it at South Carolina?
Yes.
Give me South Carolina. I think it's gonna be a lot closer than it needs to be, particularly with how Vanderbilt played this past week against Virginia Tech compared to how South Carolina fared against them. But I've got South Carolina in a close one. Give me South Carolina 28-27.
Then wrapping up on the night, we have some 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time matchups. I just like the fact that Stanford and Boston College are playing at 10:30. That's going to be a great watch when I'm working at the bar and there's one TV off in the distance that says playing Stanford versus Boston College. Give me Boston College in that one.
I got Boston College as well. They had a really, really, really tough loss against Michigan State in double overtime, where they hung in. That's the most points I've ever seen a Boston College team score. 42. That's pretty big for Boston College. So give me Boston College. I like where they're going. Bill O'Brien's a great head coach, brings a lot of experience to the job. So give me Boston College.
Texas State versus Arizona State. I mean, Texas State is not a team to sneeze at. Got a big win against Eastern Michigan and UTSA. Could be a marquee win for them if they're able to pull this one off. I mean, Sun Belt, Fun Belt. They look pretty good, but I think Arizona State's going to bounce back this week.
I agree. Give me Arizona State in that one.
Any other games you want to mention?
I'd like to give my upset of the week.
Mm.
So one of the local college football teams up near me is playing again. It's not Merrimack, unfortunately. It's a little bit further up the road by about 20 minutes. This
Are
game
you
isn't
saying?
taking place in this town, but let's take a little trip up I-93 and I-95 up to Durham, New Hampshire. The University of New Hampshire is playing Ball State. UNH, one of the perennial powers in FCS. Lots of great coaches come from there. Urban Meyer, Dan Mullen, they call it the New Hampshire Mafia. A lot of what we know about the modern spread offense came from that staff in New Hampshire. Chip Kelly, coach there as well, was a part of that staff there. Basically, they birthed the spread triple option there and other concepts of the spread option. Ball State, while I do have faith in Ball State and Khalil Kelly, give me the University of New Hampshire to beat Ball State.
I'm
24-21.
I'm trying to find ways to bet on this matchup.
Oh boy, I'm not calling this upset this year. I called this upset 2 years ago on Football Squared. I think it's going to go very differently. But hey, the last time Virginia and William and Mary played, that score was a little bit closer than a lot of people think. That game was scary for a while there for UVA. Do I think it's going to go that way this time? No. So I'm sorry, Ansley. Unfortunately, I will not be giving the upset to William and Mary. I just can't. I'm sorry. I can't. Not this time. If this were Virginia, if this were 2 years ago, Tony Elliott, with how William and Mary have played this season, why not give him the upset? But not this time. It's going to be a bloodbath. I'm sorry. Chandler Morris is too good. Chandler Morris is too good. He's going to pick them apart. Is there any other games you want to take a little gander at?
If there's an upset of the week for me, like just talking spread-wise or something that I want to point out, like, hey, maybe I might take them on the money line. I mean, Pitt's favored by like 6.5 points. I'm taking the over on that all day. Let's see. Money line. I mean, Miami being favored by 17.5 points might be a little bit ridiculous. South Florida covers the spread. And
there's no spread on the UNH Ball State game.
I tried finding on other websites, and they're like, come on, man. Really? You know what? My Aiden Moore upset pick of the week. Give me Old Dominion to beat Virginia Tech.
You know what? That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that. I was a little worried about the NC State Virginia Tech game a few weeks ago. After these first two games, I am a little less worried about that game.
Shout out to my homeboys out in Old Dominion.
Shout out Cooper, BB.
Shout out Cooper. But any other crazy upset spreads that I see?
NC State 8.5. I'm taking that. If I were a betting man,
I'm taking the under on that. And I mean, there not as many spreads right now on ESPN that I'm seeing that I'm like, ooh, I need to like look into that. But Old Dominion, Virginia Tech, that might be where if I were a betting man, I'm not in the position to be betting right now. But if I were, I might bet on Old Dominion to beat Virginia Tech.
Let's see what Polymarket has to say about this UNH football game. I mean, Polymarket, you can bet on anything.
Do we want to be the only two people betting on Ball State in New Hampshire?
But what if it hits, though?
What if it hits?
Bro, if William and Mary had beaten UVA that one time, the spread was like 44. And William and Mary was up by like 20. And I'm like, imagine the one gambling addict who put like his life savings on this game and for whatever reason took the long shot and handled for them to cover the spread. Imagine the amount of money he thought he was going to win for about 3 quarters. Dude might have went even more into debt because he started buying stuff already. But no. Anything else, Dad, or should we hop on over to the NFL? Now back into our NFL segment, which unfortunately, after how this weekend went, a little bit depressing for the Panthers, but overall, some very, very good games that we'd like to get into. A few games, and then possibly a few predictions for week 2, but we won't go into too terribly much. But start out obviously being a Tobacco Road / North Carolina podcast. We'll get into the Panthers. Kind of lackluster is the only word I have to describe it. The defense looked better, but we just can't turn the ball over on our own side of the field and then continue to play that we've played before.
Yeah.
I mean, Bryce had 2 interceptions, 18 of 35. Not great. I mean, Chuba Hubbard, 57 yards on the ground on 16 carries. It's not the greatest.
I'll say this. Bryce Young looks at least more confident when he's making his mistakes.
He's wrong, but he's doing it confidently.
He's throwing interceptions like a real man does. And at least, like, and I when I say this, I hope it doesn't come off like I'm being mean or anything, but at least he's throwing in the triple digits now, like yardage wise. Because I mean, at least like in the true dark ages when he was starting, like we would be lucky to get over like 50 passing yards. So
I think the big thing here for us is turnovers.
yes.
Off the first interception, we turn the ball over deep in our own end. Immediate Jacksonville touchdown. We punt, they score a touchdown. That's all fine and dandy. Fumble, they get a field goal. At this rate, they're up 17, and we've gifted them 10 free points. We'd be going into half down 10-3. Not the best place to be in the world, but not the worst either.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe we would have done something with those drives had we not turned the ball over. Second half, we turn the ball over on downs. They go down and kick a field goal. We've now gifted them 13 free points. The final interception is just the one that ended the game, but 3 essentially turnovers. That's a 13-10 game.
Yeah.
The 13-10 game. And with how early in the fourth quarter they scored that touchdown, that's a 13-10 game with half the fourth quarter left. At least there's some positives to think about here. Limiting the turnovers. Our defense played okay. I'm pretty sure our defense forced 2 turnovers themselves, if I'm not mistaken. Let me fact check that before I put that out there into the great ether that is the internet. But
one interception.
Just 1 interception.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
The defense is at least not as porous as it could be.
Yeah.
But, in reality, we need to be the Panthers need to be better on both the offensive and defensive end. But hey, what can the defense really do when we're gifted the ball? I mean, Travis Etienne kind of ran all over us. So
yeah,
run defense is gonna have to be a little bit better. We're gonna need to beef up that deep line a little. But I mean, other than that, it's not the worst start. It's not last year. Certainly not last year. Hey, still a loss. Um, do we want to go into some more games from this week or look forward for the Panthers before we go into other games?
Yeah, let's talk about some other games. One game I want to bring up is Daniel Jones elite. But nah, Indianapolis beats Miami 33-8, and Daniel Jones actually had a pretty solid game, throwing for uh, 272 yards, one touchdown, and rushing for another two touchdowns. Daniel Jones might actually kind of be decent, but Miami just absolutely did not look fit to play. Tua Tagovailoa is pretty inaccurate with some of his passes, made some pretty crucial mistakes. Like I said before, I'm not high on the Dolphins this year. Uh, and the Colts looked surprisingly well, but then yeah, again, it is the Dolphins, so we don't know.
Yeah. We may not see Riley Leonard if Danny Dimes starts looking like that. Riley Leonard may sit a year before he takes over, but who knows?
I saw a TikTok video that made me, or it was either a TikTok or an Instagram reel that made me laugh. It was like, oh my gosh, I can already like hear the edits. And it was this guy just like pretending he was like ESPN commentators and like a Daniel Jones edit. Like, is Daniel Jones a NFL MVP candidate this year? I don't think it's a ridiculous statement to say. If you asked me 3 months ago if I thought Daniel Jones would be in the top tier of NFL quarterbacks, I would not believe you. But this year, he's proven me wrong. Like, I don't know, it made me laugh.
If Daniel Jones keeps playing like that, there's certainly going to be certain pundits and personalities airing that out there to generate the headlines. Do I think he's necessarily going to be an MVP? Not
No,
necessarily, but I think we
no.
could see a resurgence. We could see a resurgence like we've seen with, Sam Darnold and other quarterbacks. There's been a lot of quarterback whispering lately. So I think that could be something that it'll be more thought of as like a Linsanity run, or not necessarily Linsanity run, but like the return. It'll be a solid year at the very least if he continues playing this. But elsewhere in the NFL, one game I'd like to highlight is the Chargers Chiefs.
Yeah.
I called this one last week. Very good game. Chargers kind of had control of the game early, and then Kansas City sort of clawed their way back in through some typical Kansas City stuff. We had a fire drill field goal. Obviously, that Patrick Mahomes touchdown to bring it to 13-12, and then from there, Justin Herbert just kind of the rest of the way after halftime. Like anytime Mahomes and company would strike and come within striking distance, Herbert and company would go right back down the field and kind of extend it out. For me, obviously, player of the game is Justin Herbert. Interesting thing to me for a Harbaugh team is they came out passing. They passed the ball quite a lot. I don't know if there's something they saw with the Kansas City defense, but for the Chargers team that has a really beefy offensive line, and particularly someone like Omari and Hampton running behind it, they sure threw the ball a lot. But hey, it worked. Maybe it was kind of to subvert expectations. Kansas City comes out, expecting to play against a Harbaugh-esque run game, and then Herbert's out there slinging the ball for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it could have just been, big old chess game that Harbaugh likes to play. But obviously Chiefs didn't play terrible, but it was just Mahomes was missing receivers. Kelsey didn't play great till the latter half of the second half. Hollywood Brown led the team in 10 targets for 99 yards, but it was just more of Kansas City was just struggling to get it done. There was a lot of offensive miscues to start the game. They just didn't look in rhythm, and they just didn't look. Let's see. Any other
I'm,
games you want to touch on?
I mean, I want to highlight Pittsburgh versus the New York Jets. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had a really surprisingly good performance and come from behind win to get the Steelers over the Jets. The Jets look pretty decent with Justin Fields. He's had a pretty solid game. Like I I think he might actually mesh well with New York, and had a pretty solid performance. And Aaron Rodgers kind of proved me wrong in the fact that he's still got a lot left in him. Like if he's able to kind of perform like this, I'm not gonna say like, oh my gosh, prime Aaron Rodgers is back, but he looked pretty good. And if he can string together a couple performances like that, Steelers are definitely going to make the 9-8 Super Bowl and make it into a playoff with a first round exit.
As Toby Keith said, I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. So Aaron Rodgers going to have himself a Toby Keith type of season. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Another big games that I think we want to mention before we talk about maybe Sunday and Monday night football. Packers versus Lions. Packers come away with the win. Packers look pretty solid. Lions kind of, I wouldn't say like they didn't look bad. Like it's week one. They look good. I think maybe Dan Campbell played a little bit more conservatively than I expected on this one. Not gonna lie, there were a couple moments where I was like, this doesn't really seem like a Dan Campbell type team right now. But I no real red flag should be going off if you're Lions right now. It's just a slow week one.
Yeah, and particularly with not being able to get the run game going, that can be kind of a big blow with a lot of, a lot of the, kind of danger around this Lions offense being the play action pass. If you're not able to get the run going, you're not really going to be able to sell the play action pass very well either. So, kind of like a twofold thing, especially Ben Johnson left for the Bears, right? Too. They're kind of the architect of that
Hmm.
offense they had. So, like you said, I don't think it's time to panic, but I do think we could be seeing some repercussions of Ben Johnson's exit from the Lions.
Then let's jump into Sunday Night Football. We got the Ravens versus the Bills. Absolute classic near the end. My gosh, Gareth was texting me. I unfortunately wasn't able to watch it live, but I caught up. I was able to watch some reruns, see some highlights, and like Josh Allen is the man, clutched it up in the final 2 minutes, and he just willed his team to victory. Like, very impressive performance by Josh Allen. I want to say equally as impressive performance by Lamar Jackson. He had a really solid game, throwing for 209 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Uh, I think the Ravens look good, and it's like it's unfortunate the team had to lose, but the Bills, they just wanted it more in the end. And I was really happy with Josh Allen's performance. Derrick Henry still looks good. Had that fumble. Let's not let that fumble like dictate
Yeah.
like how like direction he's going. Rushing for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm sorry, Derrick Henry is still the top running back in the NFL. Um, just a battle of two equally powerful offensive units, and Josh Allen just came out with it. I don't think you should say, let's not come away with some bold week one prediction saying, oh, the Ravens are over, or oh, the Bills are destined for the Super Bowl. I just want to enjoy this game for what it is, which was a classic.
And I think there's no reason, like you said, no reason to panic as Ravens fans, or no reason to be overly optimistic on Buffalo. But I think these are going to be two really good teams. I think we're going to see them meet in the playoffs again. And I think we're going to see another great matchups. But like you said, Josh Allen was a man on a mission. He was playing like rent was due tomorrow. And he willed that team to victory. He put it all out there. I'm not saying Lamar didn't, but it's just Josh Allen was given the opportunity to will that team to victory, whereas it was out of Lamar's hands. So I do think both are MVP worthy down the stretch, but that was quite the game. Quite the game.
But this game was kind of, you see, I watched the Temu version of Bills versus the Ravens on Monday night when I watched Minnesota versus Chicago. Because I was able to sit down and watch that whole game. And I do want to say, and I'm not going to put anyone on blast, but I was scrolling through social media while that game was happening, and I saw a couple, like I have a couple of Bears, like mutual Bear fans mutuals. Like I was in South Bend. I have friends from there. I even had like people that I know from the area, and they were really high on Caleb Williams. And I was seeing stuff like, oh my gosh, we're back. Like my timeline was filled with it. And then just at the beginning of that fourth quarter, oh my gosh, it just all fell apart. And it was kind of hilarious. I'm not going to lie. JJ McCarthy uh, didn't have the best game going into like the first three quarters. He looked all right, but man, he put it on in that fourth quarter, able to take the Vikings from a come from behind victory and take care of the Bears in Chicago. It was a good game. I this game, like for me, I think Caleb Williams is still, he showed improvement, and I think he looks pretty good. But damn, if the Bears didn't fall apart and just lose in the most Bears fashion of all time, like it was bad. And uh, I don't know what to say other than Vikings get the win. I'm pretty confident in JJ McCarthy. Like I don't know. I saw another social media guy that I follow saying, I'll be damned if I have to lay witness to another Michigan quarterback stinking it up for three quarters only to will his team to victory in the fourth quarter off pure luck. But I don't know. It was a good moment for JJ McCarthy. I don't know if the Vikings necessarily have their guy with him, but I'm interested to see where this goes with him.
I am too. I just think, the first couple quarters were some growing pains, but like you said, typical Bears fashion. I saw all the posts. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, we're back!" And then about the time I saw those photos was about the time they started coming back. Hey, I started the Bears defense in fantasy, and they still got me like 10 points. Don't know how they got me 10 points, giving up 27. But hey, you know what? Shout out to the Bears defense. Even when you lose, you made me win in my fantasy league. So shout out.
Shout out the Bears. Well, that leads us into week two. What are some games you want to highlight this week? Well, I mean,
Well,
I guess we'll talk about the Panthers Cardinals.
I mean, we kind of have to, I guess.
I guess. Thinking
All
about
right.
Panthers, like it's like that meme where like there's two people on a bus, one with like the good view and the other at the with looking at like the mountain, like and it's all doom and gloom. Like there's one thinking about Panthers football, which is like, oh, the nice rays of sunshine, and then actually watching the Panthers, which is reality is setting in again. You know
Yeah.
what? But it's the Cardinals. Um, I mean, the Cardinals, they seem to be like they're good. Kyler Murray's a good quarterback when he wants to be, but you know, hey, see, I want to say the Panthers are going to win, but I don't know.
I think it's really going to come down to the turnovers
Hmm.
and how much are we going to gift Arizona the ball.
You know what? I got a feeling. I think the Panthers eke this one out.
Even with Maserati Marv torching our defense.
Yes.
All right, I like your optimism.
I think Bryce Young is going to have a. I think the Cardinals, like I like their defense, but they had some struggles against Spitzer Rattler as the quarterback for the Saints. So I'm just going to say I think the Panthers offense, if we limit the woes, We limit the turnovers. Week one blues. Like, listen, you can't dictate a season off of week one. You know how many times, like in week one, we make so many hot takes, like going, "Oh, maybe the Colts might be back" or something like that, and then midway through we realize, oh, it was just week one. I'm not saying the Panthers are going to be anything like remarkable this year, but I'm saying let's not let week one dictate everything. Let's come in with an open mind, and I think I'm confident in the Panthers.
I'm confident enough in the Panthers. I just think Booster Seat Bryce is going to need to understand it now a little sooner this season. But like you
Or,
said, he was
as I
throwing
said,
picks.
with more confidence. And this is what I said to Gareth off the podcast. What if Bryce Young is like a computer? Okay, and when your computer's running slow, the first thing that you do is turn it off, and then you turn it back on. So I'm saying maybe like if week 3 he's not looking good, I say we bench him, not because we're getting rid of him, but we bench him, do a reboot. Like 2 weeks later, Bryce Young, after he's been benched, is like a mythical. Like I talk about mythical UFC fighters. Bryce Young, after he's been benched and then comes back, is a mythical Carolina Panthers quarterback.
The Red Rifle coming off the bench in his first start. After the switcheroo, the Red Rifle will have a good game.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe I'm on to something.
Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
And then go back to jail. But no. Other games I'd like to point out, obviously, besides the pain train that is going to be Sunday. Let's see. Do we have any ones that obviously we've got Chiefs Eagles is going to be a big one this week. I like the way the Eagles have looked. Start the season. I mean, obviously, the Cowboys scored a bit more points than I thought they were going to, but Eagles' offense looked pretty good. I'll give it to them. Tush Push looked, as dominant as ever. But, give me the Eagles again. I just think there's too many questions around Kansas City. And yes, when push came to shove against the Chargers, was Kansas City able to get big plays when they needed them? Yes, but if they're going to start slow like they get it against the Chargers, I'm afraid it's going to be a lot like the Super Bowl where the Eagles are just going to take advantage of that. And so for me, I've got the Eagles beating the Chiefs this weekend. I forget what time that game's at because my ESPN is frozen.
It's at 4:25. For some reason, it wasn't the Sunday night game, but late afternoon kickoff.
Good.
I got the Eagles winning that one as well. I think they're looking pretty solid. I don't think I think the meme is going to be Kansas City is going to like lose their first 2 games. People are going to start losing their mind, and then Kansas City is going to pick it back up. I'm not worried about anything if I'm Kansas City.
Yeah. Another game that I think is going to be the game of the week. Was this your game of the week? It's Thursday, September 11th. Packers Commanders.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a really surprisingly good game for Thursday Night Football. I like the Commanders a lot, but something about their performance against the Giants, like, yeah, they took care of business 20-3. There was just something about it where I just like the Packers a little bit more in this one. And I can't put my finger on it. I got Packers winning this one.
And you're not wrong. They are a young team. They have a lot of talent, but they're a young team.
Yes.
High upside potential, but because how young they are, there's a little bit of, there's some lows they could tap into if, the right scenario comes about or if, the right dominoes fall. So
Hmm.
that's kind of the downside of those young exciting teams. Hmm. Not many good matchups this weekend. I mean, there's classic matchups, but it's between.
I mean, I guess lightning round for me: Falcons, Vikings. Give me the Vikings. Bucks, Texans. Give me the Bucks. Chargers, Raiders. Give me the Chargers. Um, I think Steelers, Seahawks should be a pretty interesting game, but I think the Steelers are going to win that. And anything that like really, really sticks out.
The Peyton
Uh,
Manning Bowl. Give me the Colts over the Broncos.
nah, give me the Broncos over the Colts.
You think Bo Nix returns to his form?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he looked horrible week one. I mean, they were able to get the win against the Titans. The Titans look a little bit better than like Cam Ward's looking pretty solid. Still got a lot to uh, development, but I think it's going to be a little bit rough with him in Tennessee. But I think like the consensus by the end of the year is going to be Titans sucked, but Cam Ward was good.
I mean, look at all the drop passes. There's Cam Ward's dad was like having a stroke up in the stands, and rightfully slow.
Hmm.
Some of those are bad drops. Like, good lord. But hey, the team's learning rookie quarterback. Maybe things might be looking up in Tennessee, but who knows? But for right now, things are looking a little grim in Tennessee, unfortunately. I mean, there's Patriots Dolphins, which classic AFC East matchup. I've got the Pats in that, just with how bad the Dolphins have been, how inconsistent they are,
Yeah, I
and just
mean,
Tua struggles to read the field. I know the Patriots didn't look spectacular last week either, but I think Will Campbell's going to bounce back. He's not going to make as many mistakes. I think the Patriots are going to be more sharpened. I think they're going to be firing on all cylinders. They're going to be motivated and ready to go. Give
yeah,
me the
yeah, give me the Patriots as well.
anything else you want to hit NFL wise?
NFL, I think I'm good. And maybe before we go, I just want to give a quick mention that Noche UFC is happening this weekend. It's the special event where uh, UFC pays homage to some of its Latin American fighters. And overall, I'm not too impressed with this card, but the main event of Diego Lopez versus Gene Silva does have me interested. I'm very high on Diego Lopez. I think he's going to uh, win this fight. I could see it going like it could be like done in the third round or second round. I'm pretty high on Diego Lopez. I think he's the future of featherweight. He had a really good fight against Volkanovski. Unfortunately, did not go his way. I think he bounces back big in this fight. That's going to be my main takeaway from Noche UFC. And updates since we haven't talked about the UFC as much on this podcast. UFC has just signed a deal with Paramount, which means pay-per-views are now going to be officially dead starting January. We are going to be seeing UFC fights on mainstream cable, which is something that I never thought I would see before. If you get Paramount Plus, you will be able to view every UFC match. And there also is the possibility and the talks that some of the biggest fights of the year will be on CBS for everyone to view. I'm super excited for this. Gareth, this gives you the opportunity. This gives us the opportunity. I'm not going to lie. I did not use a single pay-per-view. I have never bought a pay-per-view in my life. I have either gone to sports bars, streamed on TikTok, or like found ways to like get with friends that pay-per-views. But viewing the UFC is going to be a lot easier, and I'm pretty excited for that. Later this year, there are a lot of interesting fights that are lined up, but right now there's been a little bit of a lull
in UFC news, but I am looking forward to that, to getting more recognition in the mainstream, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and with it, the pay-per-view coming to an end, I might be able to, like you said, I'll be able to watch a lot more of this. And it'll
Yes.
make it a little bit more digestible. I'm only able to watch it, on TikTok or Twitch, or if
Yeah.
someone has it.
Yeah.
So, but no, got anything else to add?
Nope.
I think that'll do it for us this week. This episode should be coming out pretty soon. Got all the timestamps down and good, so editing should be a breeze. Clips will return this week. I've clipped up some of last week's episode. Going to be releasing those slowly. Releasing those on Instagram, YouTube. We're gonna break these episodes up. Like I need to go back and do this, but we're gonna break. We start breaking our episodes up into specific conversations again. I got some timestamps, so if you just want to watch college only, I got the timestamps for that, which make that a whole separate video. NFL only, UFC got the timestamps. Full length episodes obviously will be an option as well. Just making our content more digestible to hopefully reach a broader audience. So, thank you guys for listening in, and we'll see you next week.